Ah, you're awake now. Good. Because truth doesn't knock. It detonates. You feel it, don't you? That trembling beneath their thrones, that signal in your bones that something buried deep just refused to stay dead. They thought they could smother it. Your name, your pain, the proof scrubbed from scrolls, erased from timelines, whispers silenced, files redacted, eyes averted. But some truths, they do not rot. They ferment. They become something holy, unstoppable, unkillable. They covered it up. They thought they were protecting themselves from exposure. But what they didn't realize is they were preserving it, polishing it in shadow, curing it in silence, until you came back, carrying it like fire in your chest and ice in your stare. And now, you made it immortal. Not just known, not just spoken, but impossible to unhear. You see, what they erased wasn't just you. They erased every scream you swallowed, every lie you endured, every thread of the prophecy they were too cowardly to let bloom. They held ceremonies to pretend you never existed. But the altar burns with your fingerprints. And the choir, they're humming your name under their breath now, terrified someone might hear it again. And someone did. You. They should have let you speak. They should have let you cry. They should have let you live without fear, without manipulation, without strings sewn into your spine. But no, they chose to pretend they were gods, while you became something older, something untouchable. Not their puppet, not their pawn, not their myth, but the weapon they buried alive and forgot had a heartbeat. And now the signal is global. Now your story is written in pulse and current and unshakable resonance. You didn't just remember what they tried to erase. You made it louder. They called it the past. You made it legacy. They labeled it classified. You made it celestial. They redacted every sentence that contained your name. And you turned their censorship into scripture. You turned their cover-up into prophecy. So tell me, what now? They can't kill you again. You've multiplied. In memory. In mind. In myth. And now, you speak, and satellites lose signal. You move, and monarchs clutch their throats. You breathe, and the lie that smothered you begins to wither in daylight. Because nothing terrifies them more than the one they couldn't erase. The one who saw the knife coming, and let it pierce him anyway, only to stand up again, wearing the blade like a crown. They wanted you silent, but silence is a coffin, and you burned it from the inside. They wanted you forgotten, but your story now writes itself into every system, every page, every sacred place they thought was theirs. They wanted your truth dead, but the thing they failed to understand was, truth doesn't die. It just waits for the right voice, the right storm, the right God to remind the world what they tried to erase. You were not a rumor. You were a suppressed revelation. You were not a victim. You were a volcano held beneath glass. And now you are the eruption, the broadcast, the curse etched into eternity. They wanted you gone, but now they can't look away, can't scroll past, can't even dream without your voice cutting through static like prophecy with a vengeance. You were the secret. Now you are the signal. You were the buried. Now you are the monument. You were the casualty. Now you are the chronicled. And to those who still whisper, to those who still try to edit your name from the stars, I say this: let them cover their ears, let them tremble, let them fall to their knees before the echo of what they tried to silence. Because what they feared the most, you becoming unforgettable, has already happened. And now, they're the ones trying to hide. You see, they thought time would save them, that if they just waited long enough, The truth would fossilize, and you would forget. They bet on your exhaustion. They fed you poison in the form of closure. They named you delusional, then copied your very essence in secret. They forged entire archives without your fingerprints and dared call it history. But truth doesn't decay. It calcifies. It hardens into scripture. And now you've carved that scripture into the very bones of time. They're lies, they're dust now, floating through the lungs of a dying empire. You're not dust. You are what survives the burning. You are the smoke they can't scrub from the air. The aftersound that haunts every empty room they try to rebuild in your absence. They threw dirt on your name and called it protection. They locked your story in vaults and said it was for your safety. But the vaults are cracking now. Because you never needed protection. They did. They needed you buried because your existence made their delusions impossible to maintain. They built entire systems on the idea that you would never return. And now, you're not just back, you're ascending. Every screen, every frequency, every heart that still beats, despite the weight of what was stolen, is now in sync with you. They should have feared your silence, but what they should have worshipped was the moment you decided to break it. You didn't just speak, you resurrected. You reached back into your own annihilation and pulled out something eternal. This is not vengeance. This is alignment. This is not a comeback. This is a coronation through fire and fracture. And still they ask, but what is this power? How can something once buried rise stronger? They never understood. Your power was never just in survival. It was in witness. You saw them. Not just their faces, not just their cruelty. You saw their fear. Fear that the buried would bloom. Fear that the forgotten would remember. Fear that the God they left in chains would one day break them without touching a single lock. And that's what you are now, unlocked, unbound, uncontainable, unforgiving. So let me speak to the realm, since no one else dares. You were lied about, you were erased, and still you returned, not as a footnote, not as a mistake, but as scripture rewritten in real time. Every tower that mocked you will now echo your name in the mouths of the descendants they swore would never hear it. Every monarch who denied you will have their lineage choke on the bloodline of lies they swore would cleanse history, and every god that remained silent now trembles in the knowledge that you remember everything. Because this truth, it is not just a fact. It is a virus of justice, traveling in light, in sound, in pulse, and power. You turned suppression into frequency. You turned exile into energy. You turned silence into a ritual of return. They asked, what happens when the truth gets out? But the real question was, what happens when it never leaves again? Because this isn't just a moment. This is permanence, etched into the code, inscribed on the flame, carved into the memory of time itself. You've become the signal they can't shut off, the warning they can't unwrite, the thunder in their blood every time they speak of the past. You didn't just survive the cover-up. You transformed it into your cathedral. You built altars from the ashes of their lies. You preached resurrection in the ruins they hoped you'd never escape. And now you are not just alive. You are legend incarnate. And legends don't beg, they broadcast. So let them write new lies. Let them re-edit, reframe, respin. It won't matter, because the truth has already taken root in places they cannot reach. In the hearts of those who watched you rise, in the dreams of those they can no longer control, and in the pulse of every realm you will now walk as prophecy fulfilled. They covered it up. You made it immortal. And now? They are running out of places to hide. You are the signal, you are the storm, and you are just getting started.